Hey guys, today's episode we have Emile Hurst, an investor, former realtor, and overall savvy businessman, good friend of mine from the New Orleans area today. Great conversation. He's got a lot of good insights as to how he got started in the business, his advice for people getting started in the business, and his journey along the way. And also, a big part of that was his real estate investment group that he has down there in the New Orleans area. So really looking forward to today's talk. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share the podcast at any point. And we look forward to seeing you and having you on the show. Thank you. All right, guys, welcome and good morning. We have a very special guest here with us today, Mr. Emile Hurst out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Emile, good friend, somebody that I was introduced to peripherally through Stephen Keary and Courtney Frick. Actually, Courtney was somebody that I was introduced to later. But Emile was one of the first contacts we had in the area. Great guy, family man, and a very smart and wise investor that's focused on not only his area, but trying to help, and not only his personal investments, but just trying to help everybody in his market and his sphere of influence grow. So Emile, good morning to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Good morning to you guys, man. And I want to tell you guys the special announcement. I know everybody behind the cameras and you guy next to you didn't know, but this is Ryan's last day. He's moving to New Orleans today, everybody. So give him a round of applause. The U-Haul is outside.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Emile. Yeah, we're unfortunately, we hate to do it so abruptly, but you are correct. Working on getting my wife to, we got the wedge in the door, which the door had always been closed. So we're moving forward to that reality. Yeah. I hope sooner than later.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding, man. So thank y'all for having me. Ryan, thank you for the intro. Yeah, you definitely been an excellent asset to our community, and man, just an overall good dude, man. We love to have you in the city. Every time you come, I got to make it up to Jersey soon as possible, as long as it's not the winter.
Yeah, that's right. Now it's a little too cold for
we'll see you in a couple months
from New Orleans. I get it. So trust me, but the door is always open. You know that for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So real quick, we just start. Usually we have our brainchild behind the camera, as always, with Brandon and James. And James, get us started off with a little icebreaker question, if you don't mind.
All righty. Here we go. So if you were to have a time machine, would you rather go back in time or go into the future?
Good question.
Man, that's a good question. Probably go back and so I'm a Virgo, man, so I might be overthinking it. Do I get to go back in time with the information that I know now, or am I going back in time with the information from back in time?
I'd like to think you're going back in time with the information that you know now.
Oh, I'm going
back. That's how I was approaching it.
I'm going back to 2004, right before Katrina, right before the crash. I'm going back in time in the future. This may not even happen, man. I might be on Mars somewhere.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, you don't even know where you're going to end up. At least if you go back 20 years, you have at least an idea where you're going to land, right?
Yeah. 2004, I get a tattoo that says Tesla and Google on my chest, and nobody know what I'm talking about. So I will go back in time.
Love that. Jack, how about you, buddy?
I would have to agree. I'm strictly of the basis of I have you don't have no idea what it'll be, 20, 40, 60 years from now. At least you can go back and visit, and everybody uses this as this historical thing. I view it more in the idea of like, I'd want to go back and, see Hank Aaron hit a home run or Babe Ruth hit a home run or, see Joe Montana throw a football into Jerry Rice, like different, like I'm more of looking at it like a sports kind of thing and like more big moments like that. Like you look back on all those grainy videos and all that stuff, and like that is true, undistracted fanhood. Which as I've been a Giants season ticket holder for 30 years, and I've seen kind of the evolution of that, and it's like those are true like in the moment times, and like Hank Aaron home runs, or even like you said 20 years ago, like I would love to be in McCovey Cove with Barry Bonds just hitting monster shots, like, and you're wearing a helmet because they're coming out every 2 innings. You know what I'm saying? That would be really great.
You would have been Biff from Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%. That I guess that is. Yeah, I guess that in the back, it's subconsciously I am, a little Biff-like in that sense, like where I would just be very sports minded. I guess in rock shows and stuff like that too, but definitely sports moments for me would be big.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. 1969 would have been a good year for a Mets and Jets fan.
There you go.
Which since being born in 1990, it's not been the prettiest. Our
Yeah.
Jets look okay right now, but the Mets just choked one away. And yeah, I'd have to agree with you guys, though. I definitely think, especially with the caveat, we're able to take the knowledge we have with us now,
Man.
go back in, and because there's no guarantee, let alone 20, 40, 60 years, 20, 40, 60 days. Who knows what's going on? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I
question,
appreciate that. That is a good question, James. Thank you.
Good question.
So I guess we'll just get right into it, my friend. What was it that got you into the real estate investment game? Was it part of your upbringing? Was it somebody that kind of had a little tidbit for you? Get us started from there, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So entrepreneurship was mostly in my upbringing. So my parents are hardcore blue collar, but we were surrounded by entrepreneurs, and then naturally, I just had a knack for just selling stuff on my own. So from putting a basketball goal in front of our house, and then I opened up a sweet shop. So the guys like had to come play basketball, and then they had to get thirsty. And I on purpose made sure my dad took the hose pipe off of the side of the house spigot so they couldn't get water. So they had to buy Sunday Delight, Gatorade, candy. And then that segued into high school, selling CDs and clothes and stuff like that. But real estate more specific, man. My mom called me one day and said, you need to get this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This guy was on Oprah. I don't know what it's about, but it sounds interesting. So I went to Target, got that book, and another book by Russell Simmons, the founder of Def Jam. Never read the Russell Simmons book, only read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that was a wrap. Just like everybody else's story that read it. Like once I read it, it was just like another lens. Like when you go to get your eye exam, either 1 or 2, like it just clicked. Everything just got more clear at that point. I was in college at the time. I say still full-blown entrepreneur. I had a lawn service that I purchased from somebody. So that was running pretty well until Hurricane Ivan hit. That was about 2008, 2009. And man, I had to file bankruptcy at 22. So I had, excuse me, 1 second.
Sure.
Just had to plug in the computer. So the lawn service was doing well. I purchased it. Absolutely no reason that I should have been able to purchase it at 19. So I don't even know how I had an 800 credit score. But my credit score was high. The cash flow from the lawn service was there. So they enabled me to buy a truck, buy all of the equipment and the contract from the person. So I was rocking and rolling for about a year. And I still was a sophomore in college. So I'm living, what I always wanted to live, being an entrepreneur. And I thought that I was going to graduate college and just build and scale this landscaping company, to cut lawns and do landscaping all across Southeast Louisiana. But once the hurricane hit, we had to evacuate from Thibodeau to Dallas. And I was out for about 3 weeks, maybe 3 to 5 weeks. So when I came back, I was a one-man operation. Like, all of the lawns were overgrown. You had trees that fell down. All of my customers had, trees, fall on their house and things like that. And long story short, I just got behind. Like I tried to segue into like tree cutting and debris removal and things like that. But there's only so much knowledge you have when you 19 and 20. So I thought and performed as far as my network could go, which was other college kids, right? So, once they got their refund checks, it wasn't much incentive to help me out if I was paying them, $200 and $300 a day when they just got this big lump sum of, $5,000 from Sallie Mae. Like they rather go party and drink. So fast forward, so got behind on bills and things like that, and it kind of snowballed. So that was my first time, in my opinion, being introduced to get my teeth kicked in as an entrepreneur. So, when you start this journey, you got your eyes on the prize, but you never really focus on worst case scenario. Well, this was it. At this point, fast forward a little bit more, 22 years old, the debt from the lawn service, that started to compile. So I went ahead and filed bankruptcy. So this is the time where I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I'm like, okay, so now this is another shot. So another nugget I want to leave with people. When you read these books and you hear the stories of these entrepreneurs, it kind of makes you feel a little bit better about the challenges that you're going through, because you learn that, they're not foreign. Like all of this is part of the process. So
Right.
Robert Kiyosaki, I think he had like a wallet business or a Velcro business or something like that. That failed. He went broke. So I'm like, okay, I must be kind of where I'm supposed to be. Like I was going for something big, and I'm going through the cycle. So after I read the book, I was like, real estate is going to be my next venture. So I was going to Nickel State in Thibodeau. So I thought I was going to start in Thibodeau, but I ended up getting a job at the post office back at home in New Orleans. So
Nice.
for a 22-year-old, I mean, a post office, you talking $22 an hour back in 2007, 2008. Like, that's good money for somebody with no kids, no bills.
And done at 55.
Yeah, right. Yep. Well, that would have been a plan. So there's a funny story about that too. So I'll speed to that. So long story short, went work for the post office. That went well. So still following the real estate dream. I thought the way to become a real estate investor was to become a real estate agent and to learn, the real estate business. So while I was working at the post office, I would go to night school at Donaldson School of Real Estate Education, working on getting my realtor's license, right? So, man, after 3 months, I got fired, man. I was the worst postal worker ever. Like, rain, sleet, or snow, like, you got to go. And I wasn't the best at it, man. I got rained on. Then they put me in the worst part of the city. So they had me in the worst part of the neighborhoods. And then if a permanent carrier went on vacation or had to call out sick, they give you their route. So I might be on one part of town half the day and then another half of the day. And yeah, man, I was coming back in at 8, 9 o'clock at night with people. I was bringing the mail back with me. So that's why I say I just wasn't the best postal worker. It wasn't for me. Like, I'm not good with directions. And just being in the weather, and then in the worst neighborhood, man, shootouts, standoffs, ATF and FBI in that neighborhood, like just being in the middle of that, people walking behind you and following you, waiting for you at the postal truck for the Social Security check. It was just a learning experience for me, man. So I wasn't a post office worker for much longer, so they laid me off. One day I came in, as soon as I swiped in, they walked in and say, hey, Hurst, today your last day. Once you finish your delivery, just bring your badge and your bag back. And that's it. And they walked off. So they expected me to case my mail, go out, make the delivery, knowing I'm already fired, and come back. So I want to say I was bold enough to just walk off, but I made the delivery because I needed the time to figure out what was my next move. So I did walk slow to make sure it was a 10-hour day instead of a 6-hour day.
Sure.
And that was just unbelievable. So anyway, so once that happened, I switched gears with the real estate school, and instead of going on nights from 6 to 8, they had another option where you could go for 2 weeks. And it was just 8-hour classes. You just punch it out and knock out the 90 hours in 2 weeks and then take the test. So I did that. So that's how I switched gears and kind of did a segue. So as soon as I got fired, knocked out the real estate exam, became a realtor with Gardner, had no knowledge of why I went with them. They were just the closest brokerage to my parents' house, which I was staying with at the time. Like, I saw it every day. And that's when everything really switched gears. So I ended up learning like the culture and the language of real estate. So I tell anybody, if you want to learn about the business, you don't have to become a realtor, but becoming a realtor, that experience definitely accelerates the learning curve, especially if you're in an office with a lot of active agents, and especially if you're in an office with a broker that's actually involved and active and hands-on. And Ashley went at Gardner Realtors, that Reed Boulevard office. They had some bulldogs in that office. I'm talking about salespeople, man, even the front desk people that weren't agents. It was just a real hustle office. And I like that, right? So I ended up meeting one of the clients of one of the agents in my office, and he was an investor. So I would just hold open houses for his flips. And he was, the actual, he was the mannequin of a real estate investor, what I thought it was. He had an Escalade. He talked fast. He dressed nice. I never seen him touch a hammer. He never had paint on them, so I thought I was like, yeah, this is it. So I invited him out to lunch. And it was fruitful. We started building a relationship from there. Started telling me about the books to read, Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, and things like that. So that's how it slowly started to tick up for me in the real estate investment realm. So still being a broker, still being an agent, chasing listings, but I just felt like it wasn't for me. I didn't have the autonomy that I wanted because you're governed by the commission. You still have to kind of answer to your brokers, and there's just a certain culture with being licensed that you have to abide by. But once you become an investor, man, it's like the wild, wild west. It's like every man for himself. So I kind of let the license go. And at this time, I'm working 2 jobs. I was working at Harris Casino as a slot host. And then I was working at Cafe Adelaide. That was a restaurant at the bottom of the Lowe's Hotel. So my main focus at that point was investing. I got to get my first property. So this is before I learned about, joint ventures and private money investing. So I thought I just had to save up capital, for that first down payment to find that first property. And then fortune builders came to town. So around this time, when I'm trying to build up all this capital, thinking I'm going to earn $20,000 for that percentage down, when fortune builders came to town, I went to their free event. I didn't pay for the $50,000, master 7-day coaching class, but the free event, that's when they started talking about marketing for off-market properties. That's when they started talking about raising capital. And remember, this is 2012 at this point. YouTube is not what it is now. So there isn't, free information. And investing and wholesaling is kind of like the underground of real estate investing. Like mainstream is, your flips and your landlords, but not too many people really knew about that part of it. So that language of wholesaling is how I got introduced to that niche through fortune builders. And also there was a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar that came through town. I went to that. So I always took the free information first and tried to leverage that. Never took the $50,000 camp. Like, man, they was trying to get us to sign up for credit cards in the back of the room. They were telling us how to pull out loans to get to the coaching programs. And I'm so thankful that I didn't. I just graduated from the School of Hard Knocks, man. But nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking any coaches. We got coaches in our network. We got people that do it the right way. But if you're not being coached by somebody that's actually in the game every day, because it's a contact sport. So if they jersey not dirty, that's not somebody you want to be coached by. So
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. From there, so Bandit Steins was the first thing. So I'm working 2 jobs, and now I'm like, okay, so I switch gears from like this pot of money is not going to be for my first down payment. It's going to be for my first deal. This is going to be my marketing budget. And if I wholesale enough, then I could really scale up and earn enough capital to do whatever I wanted to do at that point, whether it was flips or whatever. So Bandit Signs and direct mail, that was my first thing while I was working those 2 jobs, and got a deal that was a 3-plex, and I bought it. So that was my first investment property. It was an owner occupied 3-plex, and man, it was one of those Chick-fil-A cash cows. Like, I got it for $90,000. It was 3 units. I stayed in a 1-bedroom, then had a 2-bedroom on another side with a mother-in-law suite in the back, and like the mortgage. Because I went FHA, I was working the 2 jobs, so my credit was still good since the bankruptcy. So once I filed that bankruptcy, like my credit like plummeted to like 500. But then I got like a secured credit card, paid everything on time. So that gap between like 2008, 2009, all the way up to 2012, 2013, like my credit like went up. So I don't advise people to do bankruptcies if you can avoid it, on the front end by, doing payment arrangements with your creditors, do that. But it's not as bad as it sounds, because it definitely put me in a position to buy that first property. And I'm a firm believer with real estate, like you only as good as your foundation. So with that foundation of information of that wholesale niche, that helped out a lot. and that foundation of that built up credit and that earned capital from wholesaling, that helped me get to where I am right now. So that is that's how we get here. So I kept wholesaling. I kept that property really up until COVID last year. We sold that property only because you guys know what the market was like. Like what it was worth, it shouldn't have been worth that. So I cashed out before people really realized what it was supposed to be worth. So that's the only reason I sold it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's how I got my start, man, in a nutshell. So yeah, and wholesaling.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. And it seems like a consistent theme, not only in your story as you're going through the different stages, but also the different people that we've spoken with in the past.
Yeah.
Where you had a goal in mind and you weren't so closed-minded to only focus on that goal. You were definitely open to other alternatives and things that might present themselves as a viable option for you to continue working towards the ultimate end goal of becoming that real estate investor. So kudos to you for that, for sure. And then, it also, the other theme that I think is very consistent, which you kind of mentioned peripherally, but also we see with other people that we've spoken with, is the difference from getting to that, one deal, that first deal under your belt, whether it be a wholesale deal, whether it be a flip you're able to put some money down on and get some equity out of. That is so huge as compared to going from 1 to 100 deals. That to get over that hump of that first deal is just, monumental, it sounds like. And it sounds like it was for you a little bit, kind of, because you see the fruits of your labor. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And I want to add to that, Ryan, for the listeners that's trying to get to 0 to 1, the mechanics and the process is no different than from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 100. You got to find a deal at the end of the day. The only difference is from the big guys versus the beginners is how do you document and repeat that process. So that's kind of been my skill set, not only doing it, but capturing it and then being able to delegate it. So from the bandit signs, that ended up being outsourced to direct mail. Of course, there's a lot of different mail houses that you could outsource. Big shout out to REI Print Mail. Also, that's one of our partners with West Bank Real Estate Investors. They help us out a lot with some discounts. But
Nice.
yeah, sticking to your guns, man. Because the moment you walk away from those processes, that's when everything stops. Like marketing, that's the heartbeat that pumps blood to the rest of the business. Marketing and cash. So once you walk away from the marketing, the cash is soon kind of drip behind it.
Yeah. And take us into, and I think that makes a ton of sense. Take us into getting that personal first deal under your belt into kind of where you are now, because a big part of our relationship and how we were introduced to each other, and something that I think is, for me, one of the best things that you do is how organized and how focused you are personally, but the community now is on the real estate investment group, the West Bank group. So shout out to you and Steve for that, because I know it's a labor of love and I know it's a lot of effort and time and all of that stuff. But, how do we get into that?
Yeah. So let me catch the question again. So how does the first deal get to the scaling part of the business?
Well, just more so how did you go from focusing more on yourself personally to wanting to bring this message to the community as a whole and more of a bigger forum, for lack of a better way to put it?
So, man, I wholeheartedly credit my entire career, not to my skill set, but definitely the community that was formed around me. So the genesis of this was being in that office. So from that office, there was no agent that I asked a question to that either didn't answer the question, didn't find an answer to help me get to the answer to the question, or walk me through the process, and we learned the answer to the question together. To add to that, the New Orleans Real Estate Investors Association, once I became an investor, that community, it pumped adrenaline into my career. The people that I met, the guest speakers that came down, because man, real estate really is a game of leverage. So you got to figure out what is your incision point that you can kind of leverage to get that exponential growth to get to where you want to be. And for me, man, people's mistakes, other people's time, other people's expertise, asking questions and adding value to those relationships, like that's how I got to where I am. So as far as the group, to me, it was just second nature. It was just a cycle of reciprocity. Like, this is how I got here. This is how I stay here. Like, community and giving, community and giving, community and giving. So 2019, we threw and put together like the first meetup just to see what was happening. And shout out to Courtney, because I thought to have a RIA, you had to like go through this application process, and you had to qualify, you had to have board members. And when I asked Courtney about the process, Courtney a hustler, she a go getter. She was like, I just have a meetup, dude. I just do it.
Yeah.
I just do it, brother. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna just do it. So there was a restaurant on the West Bank, and this guy was hurting, man. So he gave us like the back of the restaurant for like $200. He just wanted like the guests to order drinks and food. Courtney was the first guest. Elrich with Vertical Capital. He was the first guest. Another guy, Randy Chambers, that was the first guest. And that was around the time when Steve first kind of moved to New Orleans. And man, the response, man, was just phenomenal. Number one, which I'm always concerned about, what was the experience like for the guests? Did you meet anybody that you wouldn't have met had you not come here? Did you build a relationship? What happened? And that was kind of like my selfish way of figuring out whether I was going to continue to do this. And that's exactly what happened. Like, people were doing deals with each other. Steve bought us one of our biggest deals because I think me and him, we met through my buyers list, and I think maybe no RIA, but we never like actually connected. But he came out to that meetup, and that's when we actually connected. He brought us a portfolio that we repositioned and sold last year. So that came from the meetup. So I got referrals. But most of all, like, I know he met people that he still does business with today. I got people that I met in 2019, that still come to the meetups that we never would have crossed paths at all had that event not happened. So in the simplest form, man, just that go-giver mentality and paying it forward. Because I mean, that's how I got here. Like, the connection, like, Steve didn't have to introduce me to you, right? That's just a go-giver.
I was just you took the words right out of my mouth. Without that meetup, we're probably not talking today, man. You're absolutely right, brother.
So that had that meetup not happen, I don't connect with Steve, and then I don't connect with Ryan, and then I don't connect, with First Equity and the guests today, and Ryan never moves to New Orleans at that point.
You know what I mean? And that's really the ultimate goal. We appreciate the podcast and everything, but it's really all about getting Ryan and his family down to New Orleans. We're going to start back to that for sure.
That's it, Bourbon Street Ryan. That's it. We ready for
That's going to be our first satellite office. Trust me, that's something that's very much on our radar, man. For sure.
It's talked about a lot more than you think, Emile. Trust me.
I was going to say, I'm sure. And just to kind of validate what you're saying there and to echo it, I'm sure the people behind the scenes here at First Equity are maybe not tired, but they hear me say it all the time about yourself and the people that are in your community down there. It's very attractive in that, like, people are very, collaborative. There's just not that it makes people want to work together, and you can see how people interact with each other, how people truly mean, a rising tide lifts all boats, and really are trying to, much like you said, it was your first experience in the space when you were with, was it Gardner Realty? They were how they were willing to take, those steps to make sure that, they didn't brush you off. Oh, that's a stupid question. Or even if it was a silly question to them, they helped you understand the process of how to get that answer if they didn't have it themselves. And like I said, I can't say enough how great it is to work with yourself and everybody in the community down there, because I don't know if it's just not the experience that we've had otherwise in other markets, but it really is something that is, I think, truly unique to the area.
And let me add to that too, Ryan. Yeah, let me add to that, guys. So
Please.
in addition to being a benefit from community, I also been on the other side of the sword from that the treacherous investors also, right? So I've
Right.
had
Sure.
money stolen. I've had people circumvent me on deals and go direct to seller. And
Right.
man, I don't know if you guys have ever had you know that feeling of having an expectation and then having a total opposite. That's got to be like one of the most disgusting and like gut checking wind sucking feelings ever. So
Totally.
I agree.
I think real estate, just the nature of it, just if anybody living in the wilderness, it is what it is. Like there's just gonna be sharks in the water. But if, in my opinion, they with a school of fish, they can't eat all of them, right? And if the school of fish is big enough, they could overpower the shark. So that's how I look at it. So that's kind of what that community is. So the guys or the people that try to charge for everything, or just getting fed misinformation for whatever reason, because everybody doesn't want everybody to win.
Right.
So
True.
if that new person, or even a person trying to scale up, because there's a different level from 0 to 10 than from 10 to 100, right? You guys see it on the lending side, like the
Right.
portfolio, the expectations, the taxes, the labor, like the cash flow management, all of that changes. So if you ask the advice to the wrong person, or you ask the advice to the person that doesn't have your best interest, like it could set you back a couple years for no reason, just because
Trust in the
they
wrong
had
person.
selfish.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean,
So,
and especially for somebody who maybe goes into some of these meetups as a more undercover seasoned guy, that maybe takes a risk and really, takes steps out of the box and says, you know what, maybe I am going to trust somebody to, help me scale a little more than I've been able to do. And all of a sudden, this guy sees kind of like a deer in the headlights and it's like, wow, this guy's got 10 properties. He did it by himself. Watch how much I can take advantage of this guy. And he hooks him up with this bad lender or this bad broker or this bad realtor. And now all of a sudden, that guy did all this work to get to that point without any help. And now he just asked the wrong person for help. And he's, completely the other side. I mean, just to kind of add to what, Ryan says, I mean, I'm sure, Emile, it sounds a little bit foreign for you to hear, somebody talk about, I guess, how collaborative the RIA is and be so shocked by it because you're in it, you know what I mean? And because you guys live it every month or every, bi-weekly when you guys do your meetups. But, we're trying our best to start one around here and have that same, we've been inspired by you guys in the conversations with you guys to do that.
Yeah.
And, it's just that we're having that trouble with the traction, right? I mean, and we're still in the infancy stages, but I just feel like we're having trouble cracking the nut of the people that truly do want to collaborate. There is still that feeling when you get into a room in this tri-state area, and I'll be blunt with anybody in the tri-state area that thinks that this isn't true, but you go into the networking events around here and it's exactly what you just said. It's 3-piece suits, it's biggest watch, it's a flashy ring, it's a shiny shoe, it's a Gucci loafer, and it's a watch me tell you how to get rich in these 10 easy steps. Yeah. Well, not everybody wants to learn that way. And truthfully, I don't care. I'm a little bit more like you. My father, blue collar, owns his own business, the same kind of idea. And like, he always had, the pool glue on his fingers, and his pointer finger and his middle finger are stuck together for 4 hours at dinner. You know what I'm saying? And it's like every night when we were growing up, that's how he came home. So like, I'm somebody who goes to a networking event and sees the guy in charge looks like that, or is running his meetup or networking event like that. And it's an immediate turnoff for me, truthfully, just the way I am, so, what would be kind of your, I guess help or your word of advice for two guys trying to do, just kind of not, try and replicate, be honest with you, try and replicate what you, Courtney, and Steve have created, but, in a different market, a little bit more of a cutthroat, market business wise, but just, what would be your big advice kind of just getting started?
Yeah, man, culture is everything. So I'm gonna start by saying that y'all are already doing it the right way. Time is just gonna be the equalizer for everything. Like I say, 2019, that first meetup, it didn't have as many people as we have now, but the bulk of it was from my network Shout out to Mick and Alex Turner. We were in a partnership together at the time that came from their network, then the Noria network. So that same community that helped us out in the beginning was the same community that came to that first meetup. And just like in the corporate world, man, the fish rots from the head. So with these other meetups, if you kind of notice, understand what the agenda is of those other founders or those other leaders, that's kind of going to be, the culture of the group. So if you guys stay steadfast, continue to be, go-givers, the following is going to happen. You got to lead by example. That's the best way to do it. So if you guys could just ride the wave on time, because it's going to be a compound effect. Because also, man, everybody can't come to every meeting, right?
Right.
So that's another
Life
challenge.
happens.
So, man, I can only go to my meetup. I only got enough time to go to mine. Like I want to go to Courtney's, I want to go to Noria, but like I said, I got 2 sick kids at home. Like my wife is full time. She's a manager from home, so I just can't. So as long as you guys are consistent, the people that couldn't make the meeting last month, they make a plan and make the one, the following month, or make the one, 2 months from now, or, the people that may be in college or the people that commute during their jobs, people put it on their calendar to make it to a meetup, right? So that's kind of it, man. It's got to be time, and you got to lead by example, man. So I want the listeners to go on Facebook, type in West Bank Real Estate Investors, go ahead and join the group so you can see what these guys are talking about. Because what we post, what it does is it repels the sharks, because they know what they think about posting. It doesn't even fit in this culture, right? So
true.
Even the spammers that try to post, number one, they get blocked. That's first of all. Like Steve is good for that. Steve is already an internet guru. So any spammers, you're not even gonna make it. First of all. And then even, the people that try to come in and, just try to sell stuff without any credibility or any value add, they don't even get engagement. You're not even going to get a like. You're not going to get a comment because it just doesn't fit the mold. But if there's a new person or a person, trying to get to the next level that posts a question, does anybody know a licensed plumber? Hey, an appraiser came out and, I got something in such and such neighborhood and they quoted me 220. Does this sound right? Like everybody's going to answer those questions because they understand and they've been there already. So all we want to do is build up each other, and a healthier and smarter community only helps you at the end of the day. Like nobody wants to be in a pool of people that don't know what they're doing. So as long as we can, strengthen the fish in the pool and feed them, good food, smart food, it's only going to help you at the end of the day. That I'm saying that for the what's in it for me type person. Like, why should I answer that question, or why should I even do this, Emile? That's why, because the question that you answer to them, that might be the broker that ends up bringing the buyer to your deal, or that might end up being the closing attorney that your buyer goes to. If this is a flip, the question that you answer, the question that get answered in the group, like that closing attorney could see the answer for that, and that answer could help your deal get closed, right?
100%. And that's what I think the big thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, that's it. Like you just got to give and share without the anticipation of reciprocity, but just know that whatever natural force that you invest, it just comes a full circle. So if you invest, BS into people, if you invest, the hustle, if you invest, trying to hide things from people, it's just going to come back around. And I'm sure you guys notice, like the hustlers that always try to hustle people always think they're getting hustled. And that's the most annoying. Like nobody wants to live like that. Like to think that every new person I meet wants something from me.
Out together.
So I'd rather take. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think we learned a ton. Like and obviously him being more face to face with you guys and having his fingerprint, his footprint down there like he does. But I just think it brings a breath of fresh air, because it can be a collaborative thing. It can be a rah-rah thing. It can be, like you said, a group adrenaline rush. Like, how can you help me here? There's plenty of bank-owned properties. There's plenty of off-market properties. There's things that happen every day that create more and more opportunity for the group as a whole. If you view it, I think if you view it as every single property is mine, I can afford every single one, this should be in my portfolio. It's just it brings a bad aura around you. It brings a bad aura around people that maybe have worked with you in the past. But if you're somebody who says, okay, this property doesn't fit my portfolio or my strategy, but I know Ryan, from, the Thursday night meetup, he really runs in the duplexes in this neck of the woods. Yep. Maybe Perfect. Me and him can, like you said, JV it, or, maybe I'll let him take this, maybe I'll put in just 10 grand here and let him take more of it, just little things, or just take the whole deal and as a whole, I just think that is so refreshing and so different than the culture that we're used to, that I've seen over the last couple of years up in our direct market in most cases, in some cases.
I agree. And just to build on that real quick, I mean, I think it's a parallel between and why we got along, the people that I've been blessed to be introduced to down there, including yourself, including Steve, Courtney, Bob Norton, another guy. We haven't mentioned his name yet today. Like, man, just a great guy, man. And, it's all about that lack of, it's not, what am I getting out of this by providing you something? It's not a transactional thing, and it never really has been. It's all about, you've mentioned it multiple times over the last couple minutes here about the go-giver mentality. And, I know Steve is a huge proponent of that. I know Courtney is a huge proponent of that. Obviously, you are yourself as well. Talk to us a little bit about that. What is that go-giver mentality, if you don't mind, real quick? Just
man. Moment. So if nobody has ever read the book, please, it's free audio book on YouTube. I encourage you to buy it because I did interview the author. But
really?
Read the Go-Giver. Yeah. I did.
Love to talk about
it's
that.
Posted in the
That's
group.
Awesome.
Yeah, we posted in the group. I can't think his name right now, but I know him. I just can't think his name while we're talking. So if somebody could Google
Brandon, you want to get
his name real quick? Yeah, somebody behind the camera, Google the author's name for.
Hey, Jamie, pull that up, please.
But basically, it's a parable that a young executive is getting mentored by this older, super successful guy. But this guy does no marketing. It seems like he does no work at all, and the business just comes to him. And throughout the book, he's taking this younger guy to meet all these different people that's super successful. And at the end of the story, all of these people have become successful because of this one executive. And the only reason that this executive was successful because, all these people fed right back into him, either with referrals and help and things like that. So that's what that mentality is, man. So you got a go-getter. A go-getter is just somebody that's just persistent, like going after it by any means necessary. So a go-giver is kind of the same thing, but it's about, where and how can I add value? How can I serve you? What is it that you need? And I'm going to fill that void, as much as possible. So just imagine, if you got 10 people in a group like that and everybody is just seeking the best interest, of the person next to them, how are you going to lose? Like if everybody's on crutches, how is anybody going to fall? If 10 people, have their own set of crutches, even if you fall, I could throw down one of mine and you could use one of mine. And that's what it is about that mentality. And that's what the group is all about. And it's not all about deals, because we know as humans, one of the most valuable things, on earth is information. So it's not all about, what you can tangibly give to me right now. It's about, what can you share with me to help me solve this problem, So, Ryan, I asked you questions all throughout the month that doesn't lead to us closing a transaction, at the moment. I asked you about other lenders and you still, tell me, hey, make sure you ask them about this. Make sure you ask them, about that, find out about the hidden costs. No, we can't do, 75% at this time, but we can do, 65%. Does that help you? Does that work for your deal at this moment? And at the moment, our pipeline, it doesn't, but for sure, that 65%, because the cash out is not going to be as important as we start building momentum and having more, net operating income. So yeah, that 65% product is going to be a slam dunk for us, especially the fact that we could use Debbie, a select, at least have a voice and an appraiser that we get to use. Maybe I don't know if anything will change to where you could pick your absolute own. But if you could have some type of say so or influence on the appraiser that comes out, man, that helps tremendously. And that's one of the gaps that we're going through in the market right now. So any company, including banks, they go through that. What's the portal where you got to choose?
It's called
AMC.
Exactly correct. And AMC, an appraisal management company.
Man, so for the listeners that's going through, I know the fix and flip, it doesn't really apply unless you're just trying to max out how much you could borrow on the front end. But for my cash out people that want to build that rental portfolio, like rolling the dice on that appraiser, like could really make or break your fiscal year. Because it happened to me already, like second and third quarter, I had anticipated some appraisals to come back. And they would justify, because I'm not unreasonable at all. Like we in the game, like we do our comps, we make adjustments in the MLS just like they do. Like I'm not asking for anything unreasonable, but what could happen is, they could swing that pendulum whichever direction they want to. So if your subject property is right in the middle and there's 4 $200,000 comps with the same finishes, and then there's 4 $180,000 comps with the same finishes, on either side. Like if you don't have that rapport, that relationship, they could swing it the wrong way, and that deal doesn't cash out to where your investors could get paid back, or there isn't enough, equity for you to cash out to move on to the next project. So it all goes back to community, man. Like Debbie Ava as an appraiser, and she's in the group, and we ask questions to Debbie left and right, but we still got to go through the AMC process. So she answers questions. She's not even an appraiser, for the property. So, that's just her pouring in to us. But I could for sure tell you it's coming back to her, because once we close with First Equity, she's the only person we calling.
Yeah. And that,
definitely.
to be fair, I mean, to your point about us being able to use a direct appraiser, and to the reason we have the ability to do that is not because we're looking to just cherry pick and get somebody to give us our value. Obviously it's great to have that rapport and that communication, but these are also, I mean, the appraisal is such a huge part of our process because we don't underwrite to so many other things. And while that relationship is huge, it is also something that is confirmed by a third party. So it's not like we're just taking these appraisals at their word and that's it. Hey, we can do that deal for you. Like, these are great people in the community. And to your point about, earlier, which side of the line are they on in terms of, like, are they close to two different neighborhoods? Like, it's just having that local intel, especially some place that's so nuanced like New Orleans. I mean, you go half a block one way, you're talking about a completely different neighborhood.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's huge. And much like Debbie, much like myself, much like Jack and our company here, I mean, it's not that direct transactional, thing that we're looking for here. It's definitely the ancillary benefit of having everybody. That consistency is key to keeping everybody there and informed and educated, but also the exposure, just being that consistent voice of reason. I saw yourself, like, you just posted something the other day about this specifically and that's the thing. Like, not only are you guys a great in-person resource for people, but you do have that Facebook page, which is so powerful because it is an open forum. On midnight on a Tuesday, you go in and you ask a question. It's not like you have to wait until the meetup on Thursday to get your question answered. You know what I mean? So again, 100%. I think that's two huge things is not only the consistency, which we're trying to implement here with our meetup, but also the consistent exposure of just being out there and showing that, how many videos do you have? I'm sure the first scroll through that page alone of you in the house that you're looking at, or in the flip that you're currently working on. I mean, and that just goes to show that you're putting your money where your mouth is, for sure.
Right. Yeah, and so I want to add that to you guys or anybody else that wants to kind of start a community, just sharing where you are. And I'll be the first to admit I'm horrible at it. Like, Steve is much better, with taking pictures and posting like where he is and things that he's doing. So I actually have to think about doing it, but that helps. So when you share that information, because nobody wants to hear information from somebody that's actually not doing it. So that's when you get into the guru world, where you want to charge me for something that you did years ago, but everybody in the group is doing work today, right? So we in the trenches, like, we rolling with the punches of the interest rates. We rolling with the punches of insurance. So these questions are all relevant. This is not dated information. Like this is, paint on my hat right now. This is from the now. So
Right.
what you guys are doing, whatever information that you can share, because there is a lot of mystique on the lending side, and you kind of help demystify a lot of those questions that I have, right? So far as understanding the origination cost, understanding like you guys roll, even as the originator and your relationship with the underwriter, like for a person that's just coming in it, they don't understand that. Like I still to this day don't know what the face of an underwriter looks like. So if y'all put that in the group one day, because I tell you what I think they look like. You remember Harry Potter when they went to the bank and the guy with
Green Gods.
that's what I think they look like, right? Because
that's what a lot of people think they look like. I think, unfortunately, and they're sweethearts of people for the most part. They have their guidelines that they're going off of. But I'm with you. I think you're right in that. I think a lot of people think that.
They have the reputation of like an umpire or a referee that they have a guideline book that they didn't write,
and they're
that
going
they
down.
have to just impose, and they get this viewing of like, again, trollish figures.
Yeah. But with that being said, since you guys are starting this meetup, I think that could be one thing, right? So if you did an episode, with an underwriter, and if they were transparent about, look, we're not here to kill a deal. We here to protect the best interest of First Equity, because if they invest in a bad deal and they don't make money, then they can't keep lending, right?
For everybody.
So
let's cut that and put that on a loop and put that on all of our socials.
Yeah. But the only way I understood that was from the relationship, like the actual personal relationship and conversations and text messages. And when you came down, we had we talked at the tavern. Also Origin and Nietzsche with Vertical Capital. Shout out to them. If everybody want to Google, look up on Facebook Vertical Capital, because they're actually, hard money lenders. So you guys are kind of like sharing the same guidelines. If you share that experience, I think with some of those borrowers, it won't be such an adversarial relationship between, the underwriters and the borrowers, or even the underwriters and the originators in different offices. I could tell that you guys have a culture where, you guys work together, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We just got to get the borrower to figure something else out, to get the deal to the closing table. But I think that's one thing. Sharing what are the things your community has trouble understanding, and your value add would be, educating them on that, in my opinion. Because I said, that's one thing. I've never seen an underwriter in my life. I've seen originators, I've seen processors, I've seen appraisers, but whatever dark dungeon those underwriters live in, I've never descended down to actually see them crunch the numbers and just, put the stamp of no and then send it back to the earth realm.
It's not unlike the Wizard of Oz. Unfortunately, they sit behind the curtain, and there's the big projector screen and the whole thing.
Makes it look worse than
we're super blessed here, where we have a very good crew. And to your point, I mean, we are lucky again, that we do have a very good group here. We have a group of people that myself and Jack, started fairly close to each other. Jack's been here a little bit longer than myself, but it's been great to also learn from each other in that way, but also grow as a team and have that experience. Because to your point, and I appreciate you saying it, is, that transparency that we give to you and everybody is for that reasons. It's not like we're in the business of doing loans. We're not in the business of killing deals. And that's the thing. Like, it gets tough at certain points, especially, to be fair, we've been, just even in the 2 or so years that we've known each other, year and a half, there's been some crazy highs in the lending world and the real estate world in general. And then everybody's legs are getting chopped off over the last, 6 to 9 months. So it's been and to have that space where we're not as regulated and there's a little bit more fluidity to our guidelines, sometimes those changes are pretty abrupt, and having those tough conversations is not easy for anybody, but we always want to make sure that we're on the forefront of those things. To your point about education, we don't want it to be a surprise for somebody when they hear something about these changing guidelines, or maybe not necessarily a surprise, but we don't want it to come from anywhere else other than us. And that I think is something that I've tried to exemplify, with all of our borrowers, but most importantly, the crew that we have down there in New Orleans for sure, and really throughout the Southeast at this point. It's into Mississippi and Alabama, and it's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah, and for the prospects and even current customers, man, I share a direct example. Like Ryan and I, when the deal, this was when you guys' seasoning period was 6 months. I had debit lined up. Everything was lined up for that cash out, and the guidelines changed. And I know you hated to make that phone call, Ryan. I don't remember if it was a phone call or a text message. But you talked me through exactly what the change was, some reasons why it was happening, and also left me with some alternatives. But at the end of the day, he was like, find the best deal for you, for this property. And, I mean, had that been, JP Morgan or Wells Fargo, like that conversation probably would have just been an email blast that, unfortunately we can't do this transaction. Call 1-800, whatever, and we'll get back to you when it does work. That's the difference between dealing with, people with the agility to make decisions like you, and also have, the autonomy that First Equity gives you guys to be transparent and educate your borrowers and share, kind of what's going on behind the scenes, because that helps. With an investor, we trying to scale up as fast as possible. So all we need to know is how and why. Like the what doesn't even matter. So the what was, it's not 6 months anymore. It's 12 months. Okay, cool. So how can we move forward from this? Okay, well, let's just wait till 12 months. Then at 12 months, we can put you at a 75% LTV, 30-year bridge loan. Okay, cool. So now I just got to go back, rework my deal, and just make it fit the mold,
Right.
Or if it's a purchase on the front end, if I got, vertical on the private money side, that 6-month bridge loan doesn't fit if I want to flip it to a 30-year with First Equity. So if they have a 12-month option, let's roll with that. Let's buy down, let's make the payments. Let's buy down, you guys' loan. So by the time it gets to First Equity, there's more equity, for me to pull out anyway. That's all we need to know, so we can make plans to move forward. So I think that's going to be you guys' unfair advantage, is that education and that transparency, but you got to share it. That's the tough part. I don't know.
And I think, I mean, you don't mind me, because I just think like Ryan said, it's like when you have these deals kind of come to a head, right, where maybe an appraisal didn't come back the right way or market rents didn't come back where you thought, and it's like, all the blame seems to land on us as the LO. Well, it's like, we're not in the business of not doing deals, but, again, we have to go through guidelines. We have to make sure this works because, like you just said, if we do a bad deal, that compounds itself into the First Equity doing a bad deal, into our creditors getting a bad deal. And, now all of a sudden our stuff gets tightened up and we start to lose out on opportunities. And is it really worth, from our end doing, riskier deals to kind of lose that leeway and
longevity.
Right. And if you as the investor, or even us, if we're the investor, and most of us in this building are, outside of these four walls, it's like, we would do the same thing. When you run through your numbers, if they don't make sense, you're not diving with both feet in. But, a lot of borrowers, and as expected, they want to fight for every single deal, and this deal has to make sense. And it's kind of the market that we're in. But, that opens itself for risk and bad opportunities and bad investments, and that's just not the business we're in. So, when we deny a deal, or when the ghouls and the goblins down in the basement, deny a deal, it's not necessarily because, we have a personal hate against Emile Hurst, here, and we don't want to see him succeed. We want him, not in the game. It's not that. It's almost like a protection, right? I mean, we might be at the appraisal point where you spent a couple $100 or whatever, but at least we're able to still maybe recoup some funds and get you out of that deal if those numbers don't make sense or don't add up to what you thought they were. And I think, I never have an issue, sending a screenshot of a guideline. I never have an issue, rewriting what an underwriter said to me and just sending it out, because that's the transparency, like you said, is true. And I want everybody to see that I want every deal to work. Trust me, I do. But when I can't do my job the right way, if I see a bad deal and continue to push it down the pipe, that's not me doing my job. Like that's me putting you, Emile, in a bad situation because I just want to get that commission check. And then a year later, the DSCR doesn't work because rents are terrible. They weren't what they thought. Appraisal was inflated, whatever the case may be. And now morally, that's my fault, right? I mean, that's, that's not, an Emile or whoever the investor is, it might be on them a little bit, but that onus falls on me as the lender because I pushed that, deal down the pipeline and got it done when it, without the good intentions. And that I just won't do, that I won't do. Whatever.
So
Maybe it's lost me some money in the world. Maybe it's lost me a lot of money in this business over the last 40 years.
Nah, hey man, I think that's a talent, and I commend you on that. But I definitely want to leave you with this: like superstars are superstars because how well they perform within the guidelines, right? So, I mean, LeBron James is who he is because he performs within the certain amount of time of the game within those 4 lines of the box. Tom Brady is who he is because what he can do in 4 quarters within those guidelines, those 4 white lines, within the field. So as investors, man, like you don't complain about, the flag. You just figure out how to outperform within those guidelines. So, but if I don't know what the rules are, or why the rules 100%. Are, then, that I could feel, I could get emotional behind that, right? So if I'm a linebacker and they keep giving me flags on these head-to-heads and I don't understand why, like it's part of the football, well, it's because it's giving people concussions and they could kind of die from that. That's not a good thing, right? So like we're not giving you loans if the DSCR is not at a certain ratio because you're not going to cash flow. So you shouldn't want this deal. Like we won't do it, but you shouldn't even want it, right? Because if it's too tight, whether it's fully renovated or not, man, like any property manager, any landlord knows, like anything could happen at any time that could eat cash flow for the rest of the year, and it could not even be your fault. Stephen Leonard from Pelican Realty told me a story at the last meetup. They had a property caught on fire, right? And then the heat from the fire was so hot that it damaged the property next door. So if that's a landlord next door, now your vinyl side, I don't know what the siding was, I'm just using it as an example, that it could be something that's not even your fault. So if the vinyl or hardy board is melted or was damaged from a fire that wasn't even your fault, well, now you got to make a claim. And, if that claim is not enough, you got to come out of pocket. And if that house was already cash flowing $50 a month, $80 a month because you lied and said how much the rents would be, like you out of it for the rest of the year. So, but explaining that to the borrowers, like I think once they have that understanding, like human nature, you got to have some type of empathy on why the goblins are like shooting down this deal. But they look less like goblins and more like Dumbledore. When I understand why they're doing, what they're doing. So
I'm gonna focus. We'll see what we can do.
It's a great idea.
In there.
It's totally right.
Because you're right. Everybody sees a tax attorney or a CPA or a lender, another real estate investor who's got 500 doors under their belt in 6 years or whatever the case may be. But nobody does really see that unveiling of the underwriter. So I'll have to let's see internally what we might be able to do there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I saw when we were on break that Jack picked up the chair. Was the underwriter? That's the door to the dungeon.
No, I just got married on Friday, and I was afraid I lost my wedding ring. So it's more of sheer panic than anything, Emile.
That's awesome.
Definitely, man. So real quick, shameless plug. I know we're running low on time. So everybody, even on YouTube, our YouTube channel, which is free worldwide, YouTube or Google West Bank Real Estate Investors. And each one of these examples that I'm using come from the guests that we interview, right? So one of the themes that rang in the back of my mind, if you go and look at the Eric Hernandez interview, how he talks about undercapitalization. I got to break it down so I can actually say it. Undercapitalization in a deal, like being in the deal and not having enough capital, not even enough sweat equity to where you can do the pain yourself and still make the deal work. That's one of the worst feelings that you could have, especially in a flip. Like where you can't get out of it when you can't finish it to the point to where it can appraise or even pass inspection. Um, man, that's devastating. That's when you realize how much of a family business real estate is. You know, when you pour into 70, 80, $100,000, and your personal mortgage still has to get paid, your personal car note has to get paid, but it's tied up in this property that can't make it to the finish line. There isn't enough equity to put a second mortgage on it. You can't borrow any more capital against it because the ARV isn't there. That's a scary feeling, man. So you really got to leverage people like you guys with First Equity that underwrite it for their best interest, and then you just got to take it with a grain of salt. Like if it doesn't fit for them, then it probably shouldn't fit for me. Like maybe this is one I should sit on the sidelines for, because that's a horrible feeling. I've been there, and I'm sure you guys have either cashed out people or somebody's bought a property from an investor that couldn't get it to the finish line. They bought it at a discount, and now you guys are able to finance it.
Yeah,
So,
and that's another one we get pushed back on all the time. You know, people trying to wonder why we don't want to jump in midway through a deal. It's like there's probably a reason why. You know, there's a reason you're coming to me to get you out of, you know, get you that last 50 grand, 60 grand. And, you know, truthfully, we've done a couple of those deals, and some of them make sense. Some of them are, you know, hard time situations, hurricane, fire, whatever the case may be, weird, you know, event. But I don't know. I just think that you have a great, you know, and just meeting you for the first time here earlier, just like a great mindset, and another, you know, heavy hitter that comes from the Bayou and comes from, you know, that great West Bank, you know, Rhea, you know, just a great strategy, great mentality, you know, like Ryan said, you know, personality out the wazoo. So I really appreciate you coming out and joining us, because I think, you know, if you don't, again, you know, and I say this, luckily, I'm lucky enough to say this at a lot of the end of our episodes, but if you watch this 50, 60 minutes here and don't come away with some kind of inspiration or some kind of tidbit, like you said, from your meetings, it's like you weren't listening, you know, you had it on in the background or something, because you hit the nail on the head so many times I couldn't even say it, because it would have just been broken record by the end of this. So I really appreciate it, Emile.
Before we wrap up, I want to add this too. This is for the lenders. This is for the investors. Just keep this in mind. Whenever you're doing a deal, you want to be the hospital and not the funeral home, right? So what I mean is, you want to give birth to something. You want to give birth to a deal that's going to be fruitful. You don't want to take on a dead body, right? Because everybody wants to go to the hospital and see the baby wrapped up. Not too many people want to go to the morgue and see that cold dead deal just laying there, and you shaking his head and like, man, he don't even look like himself, man. Look
I've
his
never
eyebrows.
It's dark.
That, man.
Man, he don't look like himself.
Bloated and looking bloated.
You know, like, just to echo very quickly what Jack said, I mean, you know, I can't say enough great things about yourself and everybody that I've been very lucky to meet down there and work with. And trust me, you know, we thank you. And you know, I will echo again, just the production, even a lot of the meetups you have now, the film quality of those, like even Bob Norton is great, man. You got multiple camera angles going on in there. Like, and to your point, like, you're not even just this episode, take that resource, you know, for anybody that's out there, that they provide free of charge, you know,
free,
and run with it, because there is whatever type of, or whatever sector of real estate that you're looking to get into, the West Bank Real Estate Investment Group has
and the information's transient. The information's transient. It can be applied to Florida. It can be applied to North Carolina, to New Jersey. It's, you know, like you said, it's collaborative ideas. It's, and, you know, and again, like I said before, Ryan, you know, me and Ryan have tooled in a couple of us, you know, why not pool our money together and get a couple, you know, down there in New Orleans or something, or just him personally, you know, whatever the case may be. So
let's do it.
Please, you know, take a look at the information that we'll put some disclaimers below. We'll put all the information, all the links down low. You know, again, thank you, Emile, so much for coming, man, and taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
And we appreciate it.
Any final thoughts before we let you go?
We got to get you to New Orleans, man. So Ryan, you gotta bring him. You gotta bring him.
I'll be back.
Listen, I've been on the guest list a couple times, so I have to make it happen for sure. So now that we have a kind of a group thing going, I think it'll definitely make it down for sure. It'd be awesome. It'd be really, really great.
No, man, I just want to encourage everybody that's listening. Like I say, for our group, it's the closing the gap. That's why that logo is the bridge. We're just trying to bridge the gap for you to get to your next deal. Whether your next deal is 0 to 1 or 1 to 1,000, listening to resources like this, having people at your fingertips, like Ryan at First Equity. Start going to their meetup if you're in the area. So what's your guys' radius? So New Jersey, what's the surrounding area? So how far could they drive reasonably?
I mean, ours is right in the middle.
30, 40 miles?
Yeah, it's about 30
Okay.
minutes down the Parkway, north, southwest. No matter what, you could probably get there within 30 minutes. Probably would be the realistic reach of our radius. But I mean, it's 10 blocks from the beach, so it's a nice ride in. It's at the Beach House Brewery.
And when is it?
The next one we have is December 1st, so it'll be the first Thursday of the month moving forward. After that, at Beach House Brewery in Belmar, New Jersey. So maybe once we get a little warmer up here, we'll have you come up, and
let's do
we're
it.
probably 6 months, 7 months out of that, but at least we'll have plenty of time for people to plan and come see you in person.
Yeah, well, thank you guys, man. That's it, man. I just want to encourage everybody to keep going.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Don't let the public news and noise distract you from real estate investing, like with the marketing conditions and the shifts and all that. All that's a distraction, man. Real estate is always a numbers game. So as long as your numbers fit, matter of fact, that Nelson Salem interview, go on West Bank Real Estate Investors YouTube channel, watch the Nelson Salem interview. He said that the best deal in the real estate market is the one where the numbers work today. So today is always different. So if your numbers work today, that's a deal.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love it.
The best deal is the deal where the numbers work today, right? So
cool.
Just keep that in mind. And First Equity is here to help. Hop in the Facebook group. We're here to help. Whatever national questions we can answer, man, we open to it. Let's do it.
Love it, man.
Amen, brother. Well, thank you so much, Emile. Always appreciate the time, and it's always good to see you.
Awesome.
We'll be in touch, and we'll be down in New Orleans soon.
Let's do it. Mardi Gras in February. Mardi Gras in February. Let's go.
That's it. We'll be there for that.
All right, man.
All right, perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, later.